All right, class. We are going to talk about residuals. These are the last concepts that you'll have to put into your project. So let's practice a couple problems and we'll go from there. So in this worksheet, it's day 30 classwork, Unit 2 residuals worksheet, we have two things that are going to help you. One is the equation to solve for the residual. The residual is the actual y value minus the predicted y value. So you just calculate the predicted y value, you subtract it from the actual y value for your point, and you get your answer, that number. Okay? Then we're going to interpret it using this sentence here. So we'll use this framework to get every component that we need as far as interpreting the residual. So what is that number that you calculated? What does that actually mean? All right, so let's take a look at number 1 and number 2 as our example to work through. All right, the things that you want to notice here are the equation of the best fit line. So that's going to be important. And then what value or what point are we calculating a residual for? So for number 1 here, let me take a look at number 1. We're calculating the residual for a country with 5 glasses of wine consumed and 120 deaths. So if I look at the table, that actual point is right here, right? We can see that right here. Okay, if I look at the graph, 5, 120 is right here. So this is the point that we're looking at. It's 5 and that's 120. And what we're basically calculating is how far off that point is from the best fit line. So the distance here, right? We're going between this point to where the point would be on the best fit line. All right, and that's the equation here, right? The residual is equal to, I'll put it up here. So the residual is going to equal the y minus that predicted y value. I'll put that squiggly line there. Okay. And before we get there, we need to know what we have. So in the equation, we have two values, or in the problem, we have two values. This is the glasses of wine. We look at what that is. That's our x, right? Glasses of wine. So this 5 is the x. And the 120 is our y. You can see it there. It's our y value. It's talking about deaths, right? So we already have this. This is 120. What we don't have is this y hat, this predicted y. And how are we going to get that? Well, we get that from the equation of the line. See the squiggle there? That's our y. And this is our x for the equation of the line. So I'm going to take this 5 and plug that into the equation of the line. So let's do that now. So this is going to equal 255.5 minus 16.8, and we've plugged in the 5 here. All right, you gotta use your calculator, plug that into the calculator, and what do you get? You get 171.5. All right, so that is the predicted y. So we take that number, 171.5, and we subtract that from the 120 that we already have. And what do we get for that? you get a negative, and that's fine. That makes sense. Negative 51.5. So we go into the problem set. We now calculate. The answer is negative 51.5. Done. That's the actual residual, or the residual. All right. So what is that telling me? It's basically saying that between this point, that was the actual point, and the predicted point, that's below the line by 51.5. Okay, that's the distance between those two. So we want to write that out in a sentence now. So we've got the answer, it's negative 51.5. We want to do the sentence. So let's get rid of all the work that we did here. Okay, and then let's figure out how are we going to write about this number negative 51.5. We go up here and we see that the interpretation of a residual, we talk about the actual y value, or the actual y is a number that's either higher or lower than the predicted for the point that we were given. Okay, so I can take this whole sentence and reuse it. So I highlight it, hit Control C to copy, and then I go into my answer for the interpretation, click in there, and I hit Control V to paste. So I've got the sentence in there. I just need to change the things that were underlined to fit the problem that I have here for number 2. So let's start to do that. Let's start with the y context. What is our y context? You can see it in the table. You can see it on the graph. It's number of deaths, right? So I go here and I change this to number of deaths. The value that we calculated, that's the next thing that I'm going to change, right? So we've changed the y context word here in the sentence to fit what it actually is in this problem. So we say the actual number of deaths is, and in this case, the residual was negative 51.5. That's the number we got in number 1. So we put that there for that hashtag sign actually is a shortcut to write for number. So when you see that here, you're giving me an actual number, and that's the residual, which is negative 51.5. And if I'm looking at that point, I'm thinking, where's that point compared to the equation of the line? It's below, right? It's lower. The residual is also negative, right? So I want to make sure that if it's negative, that means that the point was below the predicted line. So I'm going to take out this to only keep lower, because residual is saying that the actual point is lower than the predicted. And for what value did that happen? That happened at the glasses of wine that was 5. And where am I looking at this? Like, what am I putting in here? That's this here. That's the X context. So I'm going to go back to the equation or the sentence and change this last part to say for 5 glasses of wine. You say glasses of wine that equals 5, that's fine. But remember, there's another number symbol here. We're looking at the number that we got it at, the X number and the context. So we got everything, right? So we changed Y context to number of deaths right here. We included the residual number right here. We made sure that because the residual is negative, we have it saying lower. And then the last part is the X context and what number that was. And so we've changed everything we need to change, and that sentence is now accurate for this problem. Okay, do that each time and you'll be good to go.